Welcome back, everybody, for another video here on the Psych Ward. Before beginning, I'd like to say genuinely thank you to you all for the continued support and feedback in comments and polls. My content output isn't what it used to be, so I'm actually very glad that in the meantime you are all still actively viewing and sharing and supporting the channel. But today, we journey to the award-winning series Blue-Eyed Samurai to examine its main antagonist, his motivations, and behavior. Within the annals of history, there will always be stories of great heroes, benevolent rulers, and the figures that help support them, but rarely is light shown on the underbelly of these tales. We never see the after effects of the great and powerful ruler, the lives changed by wars. We never see the people left in the wake of conquest and what they had to do in becoming the process of changing history from the shadows. And our character for today is the perfect case of such a figure, Abijah Fowler. From Blue-Eyed Samurai, a gun-peddling, flesh-trading, drug-selling plague on 16th century Japan. But before starting, quick shout out to my patrons listed below, and as always, if you like this video and what we're doing on the channel in general, please leave a like and subscribe because we're dangerously close to 5K subscribers, and I feel like we can get there before the summer's out. Continuing, Fowler is the main antagonist of Season 1, and per the story, a smuggler by trade. One of 4 white men allowed into Japan at some point to bring Western influence and goods. Outside of his heinous ways, Fowler's plot focus is a barrier Mizu has to overcome as she hunts down the man who could be her father. Abijah Fowler is first shown sitting from the shadows, advising that the 4 fangs be dispatched to kill the main character, after they cut off 4 fingers of a flesh trader that bought a gun from our main man, Heiji Shindo, a current vassal and conspirator against the shogun of Japan. It's made clear from the start, Fowler is not a man that likes to be plagued with things he can't control. He had Heiji send the 4 fangs simply because Mizu was aggressively seeking them out. Granted, like I said, Mizu did cut off a couple fingers, but when the fangs had yet to dispatch Mizu, Heiji was worried. Fowler simply stated, "Why worry when that's why we hired people to take care of the problem," showing he has a very out of sight, out of mind attitude to him. And at first, Fowler may seem to present a sort of parallel to his reputation. While a masterful painter, he hates art and seemingly all of the creative pursuits, many of which he's learned while tucked away hidden from the Japanese public in an isolated fortress, all while his guns, drugs, and flesh permeated Japan. But per his trade, Fowler is, well, foul in a plethora of ways, from literally the type of people to kill the messenger when given bad news, to having Heiji Shindo organize the 16th century equivalent of a Diddy Freak Party tour. But you know, that's somewhat of an annual affair, as every year Fowler will be brought to the capital to pay tribute to the shogun. We see Fowler engages in debauchery beyond the levels of simple kinks, from sodomy, mutilation, cuck-level bestiality, and outright murder. It's left up to our imaginations what other twisted things it takes for Fowler to get off. So it's no wonder Fowler can tell the difference between a man and a woman by how their bones break. And Madame Kanji, the geisha who personally saw to his arrangements, simply said that there are men's eyes who can't help but show that they've consumed flesh. And here's where Fowler's real story begins. As a child, Fowler was orphaned during the Tudor conquest of Ireland, a time between 1536 and 1603, subjectly probably in his youth, when the Tudors invaded and sought to erase Ireland's way of life by not only disarming but also disfranchising the entire country historically, its nobility, and its culture. It's said in the short time between just 1602 and 1603, over 60,000 people died to the famine. From this, it's assumed at some point during this, when the O'Neill clan supporters had their lands pillaged and burned by the English, Fowler's parents starved to death first. Common as parents, may try and feed their children by skipping meals for themselves because they're bigger and take more, but after that, Fowler and his sister were then forced to live off rats and nettles, a type of leafy green plant, and even those ran out. With starvation imminent, Fowler then kept his sister alive for 2 weeks by feeding her his own blood. And even still, she ultimately perished. After her death, Fowler had to fight off scavengers from eating her corpse for 3 days until the ground thawed and he could bury her. However, to stay alive, Fowler cut out and ate his own sister's kidneys before burying her, even noting that they had a fat cap on them, like a pea. He bitterly refers to this as the last thing I ever did because I had to. Fowler states that there hasn't been a single meal since then that he hasn't remembered. He hasn't remembered what he had to do to survive. And since that moment, Fowler was determined to control every aspect of his fate, and by extension the world around him. This explains his resentment of the shogun for leaving him in exile and essential house arrest for years. Ill-tempered but still cold and calculating, Fowler is all too human, and that's what makes it more sick in his sort of transactional view of reality. He operates on a purely transactional basis where everything, including human relationships and even spirituality, can be bought, sold, or bargained with. This belief in deals even applies to some aspects of the divine for him. There is one telling scene where he enters the chapel and tries to bargain with God himself. Christianity is something that he does not believe in, keep in mind. This suggests he is someone who has rejected genuine faith and emotional connection in favor of manipulative pragmatism. Savage in his outbursts as he's clever in his conspiring ways, Fowler shows his intelligence has become twisted into a tool for domination rather than genuine accomplishment. And psychologically speaking, he embodies the colonial mindset that views foreign cultures as inferior and ripe for exploitation, using his outsider status not to understand but to conquer. Fowler represents a sort of psychological archetype of the intelligent psychopath, one who has rationalized his impulses through philosophical delusions about power, progress, and superiority. His lack of genuine religious faith, despite his Christian background, suggests that he is more than willing to reject moral constraints in favor of pure self-interest. And though he often acts as if everything is within his control, he can just lose it and lash out at those around him, shown when he brutally kills a messenger and cuts the dinner table in half after finding out what became of the four fangs. Unlike many villains, when confronted by the hero, Fowler actually wasn't afraid nor particularly bothered by Mizu, even during her invasion of the tower. Fowler simply stated that it was a man, and only after Mizu takes out two of the men there and makes it to the top does Fowler casually unveil himself by just shooting Mizu. And like he had said earlier, a sword may be beautiful, but a gun can take any sword. And after beating and even revealing the uncertainty that Mizu is his child, because as he said, all of his bastards are accounted for, and accounted for as in the skeletons that line the tunnels to the tower. Even after firmly beating Mizu, Fowler goes on to even sniff out all of the opposition to his plan. He never reveals how he's gonna bring in the guns, leaving no open details until the time came to actually use them. And a statement that perfectly explains Fowler's treatment of his allies is what he said to Heiji Shindo during their possession to Edo. Let them worry. When they stop worrying, they stop thinking they need you. Fowler expertly smuggled the guns in through what seemed like lavish furniture, and then proceeded to make a very symbolic execution of the men who tried to conspire against him. Even after marching upon the capital, Fowler told the Shogun's sons that he had made their father the second richest man in the world, and surely that denoted him having a seat at the metaphorical table, to which it was made clear that despite his contributions, he was not welcome. So Fowler's final plan would begin. We don't know if he would have, turned face just because they did finally allow him in, but he had came this far, so. Funnily enough, Fowler does understand the Japanese people in their ways. He marched his army directly into the capital, knowing the proud and honorable samurai would try to meet the threat head-on, which led to a massacre. To say it in Fowler's words, no one manufactures death quite like the English. Fowler even succeeds in making it to the palace and executing the shogun. His coup was nearly foolproof, except for, Mizu. But even after losing an epic battle in the fire-afflicted city, Fowler still has leverage over Mizu, shattering her reality by telling her the woman that raised her wasn't even her mother, and that she wouldn't find the rest of the hidden traitors without him. Thus, Fowler is taken as Mizu's prisoner as they both set sail for London. So, we'll definitely see more of Fowler in Season 2, though I'm thinking he's either going to escape captivity or die trying. But even this ending shows Fowler's tenacity. This man would do anything it takes to survive, as his past and present show, even selling out his supposed business partners to avoid Mizu's blade. But with that, our video is gonna come to a close. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and if you I messed that up. If you watched this far, remember, above all else, stay safe and stay sane.